So, this isn't going to be like a 100% in-depth story summary. Lots of other videos have done that before. So, I thought that it's best to just kind of talk about like the broad strokes, more of the concepts behind things, less than what actually happens. Because Nomura is a crazy person who doesn't know how to make games on time. And 3D made the game story kind of go a bit off the rails, so people coming into the series might get really confused. So if you want to play 3 and you haven't played the other ones, this is at least should give you partial understanding of like what's going on. So there's a lot of central concepts in the story of Kingdom Hearts. A lot of them focus on the duality of light and dark. There's keys and doors, the body and the heart, which in this series is more of like a spiritual or your soul type deal because it doesn't have like a physical form. Otherwise, this game would not be rated E to E10. The number 7 and the number 13, kids who are named after earth, air, and water, and the letter X. So much love for the letter X. So to start with, Kingdom Hearts is a moon or a door. Nomura kind of was writing this as he went along, so the first time you see it, it's a door, but then it's, oh no, it's a moon. Oh, but it has a door. It's essentially the heart of hearts, as I think it's called. It's a collection of, I guess, everyone's soul. Very Jungian psychological thing, kind of the whole like collective unconscious type deal, except it's the collective soul of everybody. I guess that means it's really powerful, which means a lot of people want it. And to use it, you need what's called the Keyblade. For the sake of this video, I'm going to be referring to this Keyblade as the X-Blade, because it's pronounced Keyblade because its first letter is the Greek letter for key, which looks like an X, because there's a lot of love for X's in this series. And to make the Keyblade, you need to have a clash of light and dark forces. Now, apparently it's a bit more complicated than just having an adorable dog fighting this evil cat of yours who wants to like claw up your furniture, but it takes the main villain of this series a little while to get to know that. So apparently this Keyblade was so cool looking that a bunch of people decided to get together and make little facsimiles of it called Keyblades, which are little tiny giant key things that you hold in your hand and can hurt people with, even though it looks kind of dumb. And they have the ability to open up locks, and they can use magic, and you're able to pass on the ability to wield them to other people. And I guess a bunch of people got these things and then fought each other because they wanted to make the Keyblade to get Kingdom Hearts, but then they all died. Whatever. They don't matter. Who does matter is this guy, Xehanort. Now, he's a Keyblade wielder nowadays, and he's this evil bald guy. And he has a huge fascination with the Keyblade War and wanting Kingdom Hearts. And instead of just going on reenactments every weekend with his buddies, he decides to like actually do the thing. And all the games are essentially about his many attempts to forge the X-Blade. His first attempt is covered in Birth by Sleep. It involves him taking his assistant, or his ward, Ventus, taking all the evil out of him and making a new person that's pure evil while leaving pure good inside this boy, and then forcing them to fight each other so that they'd forge the X-Blade. And they do, and it happens. Meanwhile, Xehanort's like, I'm old, I'm gonna need a new body. Ventus's friend here looks like a good substitute. I'm gonna take over his body, which he does. There's also a girl there, but she's not important, except she is, because she breaks the X-Blade and stops that from happening. Years later, Xehanort is now inside this younger body, and he's doing his grad study with this guy Ansem, and they're working on studying these beings called Heartless. Now, in this world, when you get wrecked, your heart will break away from your body, and then it will become a Heartless, which is like these weird black creatures, and your body will become what's called a nobody, which are these weird lanky white creatures who don't show up for a while, almost as if they weren't a thing until Kingdom Hearts 2 came out. And so during his studies, Xehanort realized that maybe my class shouldn't be of two figures. It should be 7 figures versus 13 figures. I'll say 7 of light, 13 of darkness. And so he decides to collect all these things, he's gonna have to split himself up. So he does some goofy time travel stuff, which I'm not gonna get into because no one really understands how he did it. And then he chickadee checks himself and then wrecks himself. He splits himself into 2 forms. A form that he calls Ansem, which is a Heartless, which ends up taking over all the other Heartless, who end up taking over a bunch of Disney villains so that they can kidnap the 7 parts of light, which in this case are the Princesses of Heart, which are 7 people who have hearts of pure light and pure good, and are all underage girls for some reason, most of whom are Disney princesses. One's Alice for some reason, and the third one is Kyrie, the main girl of the series. Meanwhile, his body becomes a nobody called Xemnas, who ends up taking over all the nobodies, and he wrecks everyone else in the immediate room and turns them into nobodies. And they're special nobodies where they get to keep their regular physical appearance, and then he collects 12 of them, and they become the Organization, or Organization 13 as they're called. But they're not called that until after like half of them are dead. So the Heartless do what Heartless do best. They go to town, destroy it, wreck everybody, gather more Heartless, and then they get to Destiny Islands, where one of the Princess of Heart happens to be. And her heart's like, no way, I'm gonna bounce, and it jumps inside this boy named Sora, who just happens to be there. And there's this other kid, Riku, who happens to be a latent Keyblade user. Except, when the time comes for his Keyblade to show up, he's like, I think I'm gonna use darkness instead. And the Keyblade's like, okay, well, that's not what we do here. And it goes to Sora, the spare. So this is the second time a spare character ends up being really important. So then Kingdom Hearts 1 happens. Sora teams up with Disney characters who have questionable design choices, like why does Goofy and why does Donald not wear pants? And they take out Ansem, and along the way help Riku not be fully controlled by darkness or whatever. And now Riku has an actual Keyblade this time. They also stop the collection of all the Princesses of Hearts, so that doesn't work. And then over the course of Chain of Memories in Kingdom Hearts 2, everybody gets back together and takes out all the organization members. So those guys are a wash. So Xehanort's really confused now, because now that his Heartless has been killed and his Nobody has been killed, he comes back to life because that's how that works. And he decides, okay, I've tried to make the X-Blade twice. I'm gonna try another time, except this time I'm gonna get 7 Keyblade users to fight 13 Miis. So he uses time travel to get the other versions of himself, including Ansem and Xehanort, and a younger version of himself, together, as well as some of his old organization buddies, who are now real humans this time, because I guess at some point the Heartless were killed. And he figures that maybe one of his versions should be Sora, because who's Sora? He doesn't really have a set part in this, and he acts like Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt all the time. But Riku's like, nah dude, I lay claim to that booty, and then he stops him. So now 3 is essentially going to be focusing on the third attempt to forge the X-Blade between 7 Keyblade wielders and 13 Xehanorts, or at least vessels of himself. Because remember, he can take over other people's bodies, and he's going to do it like a lot. And along the way, we're going to go to even more Disney worlds, and we're going to do things, maybe see a Final Fantasy character cameo. Maybe the Sora, Riku, and Kairi love triangle will finally be resolved in the right way.